Coming up in all angles, allegations of corruption and nepotism just months before an election.
The two parties need to reevaluate themselves, shift around a lot of the cabinet members, fire some of them all vampire there.
Are the allegations made too loosely, and do voters really care? And if not, how do we make things better? So much for joining us for another edition of All Angles. I'm Dion Jackson Miller. So in this program, we're going to be talking about allegations of corruption, nepotism, responses from the parties, and what do voters actually feel about corruption? How does it influence, if at all, their intention to vote? Before all that, though, Kelisha Williams has this overview.
A story published in the Gleaner on July 3rd, Cronyism claim Lisa Hanna dodges charges but scolded for contract nepotism, opened old wounds for the St. Anne South East Member of Parliament. It said Miss Hanna has escaped criminal charges but has been slammed for nepotism and cronyism in the award of millions of dollars in contracts in St. Anne, in a ruling by the Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP. The article came days after the Integrity Commission's special report on the scandal-plagued oil refinery Petrojam, reigniting the debates on corruption in representational politics. But how did Lisa Hanna get here? In June 2015, the Office of the Contractor General, OCG, began investigating allegations of impropriety and corruption at Hanna's constituency office and the award of contracts by the St. Anne Municipal Corporation. In its November 2017 report, the OCG found, among other things, that the recommendations by Ms. Hanna in respect of approximately 12 persons affiliated and or associated with the People's National Party PNP give rise to a conflict of interest and may be regarded as being tantamount to cronyism and or favoritism. Then Contractor General Dirk Harrison also questioned whether Lisa Hanna, as MP, willfully neglected to perform her duty and or is guilty of misconduct by acting fraudulently in making recommendations for persons within her constituency and their relatives to be awarded government contracts. Section 21 of the Contractor General Act allowed the Contractor General to refer his findings to the DPP. So Mr. Harrison asked the DPP to consider whether conflict of interest was involved in Hanna's recommendation of 12 contracts to people linked to the PNP and whether she willfully neglected to perform her duty. Up to July 3rd, 2020, no update from the Integrity Commission, which brings us back to the Gleaner article, which noted that the Gleaner has seen a copy of the prosecutor's recommendations. It said the DPP ruled in July 2019 that the findings against Ms. Hanna were not enough for a criminal charge to be laid, and nepotism and cronyism are not crimes in Jamaica. But Gleaner reporter Jovan Johnson said the DPP's assessment, which was also sent to the police, was scathing. It argued that the OCG's report revealed a culture of negligence and or unethical management in the award of contracts developed in the St. Anne Municipal Corporation acting under the aegis of Ms. Hanna. Soon after the article was published, the St. Anne Southeastern MP took to Facebook stating that it's time to stop misleading and desperate journalism. The post, signed by the MP, said, the DPP ruled in July 2019 there was no allegation or evidence that Hanna departed from established procurement procedures and that a prosecutor could not prove either willful misconduct or abuse of public trust. The People's National Party's leadership has also been on the defensive. In a statement on Friday, July 5, the PNP said it was always clear from the OCG report 3 years ago that Lisa Hanna administered her constituency affairs in a manner in keeping with the principles of good governance and in accordance with the rules governing the Constituency Development Fund and the Special Employment Program in particular. The party said the DPP's ruling further exonerated Ms. Hanna from criminal conduct. And as such, the The PNP urged that the matter be put to rest. But Director of Public Prosecutions Paula Llewellyn spoke with Dion Jackson Miller during Radio Jamaica's Beyond the Headlines on Monday.
What I understand you to be saying then is that when you say a matter does not rise to the level of criminal charge, you are not necessarily saying that therefore the matter should end. If there are other concerns, governance concerns, administrative breaches possibly, nepotism, cronyism, your indication is that the authorities that deal with those issues therefore need to take it from there.
That is so. So whatever sanctions or whatever is within their particular prerogative to make sure that this doesn't happen again, then they need to do that. But may I say that when we indicate this, the DPP or a prosecutor has no power to exonerate anyone. When we put a ruling forward and we indicate that there is insufficient material to form the basis of a criminal charge, that is not an exoneration.
The DPP adds that while Ms. Hannah could not be criminally charged, she is still not in the clear.
You want to make sure that the persons voting this, if they have the power, for example, the people at the Integrity Commission, to perhaps to the policymakers, push for something to be done in terms of their recommendations to make sure that you tighten up on the systems, the governance systems there, so that you don't have these loopholes that allow cronyism or nepotism outside of the protocol.
Kalisha Williams for All Angles.
Thank you so much, Kalisha. And joining me in this segment of the program, Leader of Opposition Business in the Senate, Donna Scott Motley. Thank you as always. Always appreciate you talking to us.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Dion.
At the same time, while the PNP issued the statement that Kalisha referred to in that story, Dr. Peter Phillips is criticizing what he says are the JLP-run municipal corporations for what he calls a pattern of abuse, while seeming not to be willing to address the concerns that were raised by the officials of the state in relation to Ms. Hannah in this instance. So how does the public take the PNP seriously?
Well, let's start at the beginning. And let's think about what it is we are looking at. We have something called a Constituency Development Fund, which some people call a pork barrel. It was actually instituted by Bruce Golding in 2008, and he has written extensively on it, and sometimes defensively. So what happens is that you're required under the law to have consultation with your constituency, and if you're a government MP, they require that the constituency caretaker be also present. It goes through a process, including to a parliamentary committee. It's approved, and then we go to how it's distributed. It was actually designed to ensure that members of parliament would be able to assist their constituents. And Dion, it is not a new situation. I remember when I first entered politics, I was told it's 60% for the government and 40% for the opposition. I was not that fortunate because in the constituency which I was seeking to represent, the Member of Parliament made it very clear that he was not quite into that. So what we're talking about is a culture of how politicians operate. And what I saw reflected in the report on the St. Anne Municipal Corporation related to the Member of Parliament making the recommendations and the municipal corporation making the payments. What I found interesting was that in some aspects of the Contractor General's report, although he saw the work as being done, one of his concerns was that the contracts were signed subsequently. And it seemed to me that his main concern was with how the process took place, both within the corporation and the member Hannah's constituency office. But I will say what my position is. This is an indictment on everybody, because if you go to anybody's constituency, you will find out that that is actually how they operate. They favor their supporters.
I'm trying to figure out, okay, so having started, you start out by quoting that formula, for instance, that a lot of Jamaicans who don't belong to either party would say, okay, so where do we fall? If it is that an
well,
MP.
let us be clear, and let us remember what the OCG and I think the DPP also said. Because they said it was, they didn't say that everybody was left out. What they found was primarily persons who were PNP supporters who benefited. I can tell you that in the constituency in which I live, when you pass any road work which has been done, every single person is dressed in a T-shirt with the visage of the Member of Parliament. Every single person. So I am not disagreeing that it might not be acceptable. But what I'm saying is that a long embedded culture, which if you go to every constituency, you will find that problem. And what Jamaica is saying by their response to this report is we don't want it to be like this anymore. The question, Dion, is how do you do it?
Yeah, but the issue, though, is that the PNP doesn't seem to be acknowledging that at all. And I mean, I hear you saying this now, but when you listen to, certainly when you read the statement that had been referenced, there is no response to the concerns that the OCG had raised, using phrases like misbehavior in public office, using phrases like conflict of interest, no reference to the concerns that had been raised by the DPP as well in looking over the evidence that had been provided to her that she said did not rise to the level of criminal charge. So from the party itself, one got no sense that there are some problematic issues here, whether criminal or not. And they were not. So you don't get a sense that the party is looking within itself, but only seeking to point at those on the other side.
Well, I don't understand exactly what you mean by pointing at those on the other side.
I mean, Peter Phillips
I know, for example...
No, I mean, Peter Phillips
yes.
saying specifically that there is a pattern of abuse in municipal corporations led by the JLP. That's what I mean.
Well, perhaps it is in reference to the direct allegations which have been made recently against the St. Anne Municipal Corporation. Because those, you mean the one that forced Mayor Bell Navis to have to resign, for example?
No, but that's my very point, that the PNP and Dr. Phillips are willing to point to those concerns, are willing to point to concerns at Petrojam, but seem unwilling to do any introspection and look at its own members and its own processes.
I don't think that is true. For my own part, as a member of the party, I know that we're constantly looking at what next we can do. We have passed a lot of laws to try and stem the tide of corruption. My own view is that laws are just not enough. That you have to also, as leaders, lead by example, and you have to take a stand against it also in the way you deal with issues. But to say that the party is not introspecting, maybe it's difficult to communicate that through a news release, but I can assure you that we do take it very seriously. I myself have had some responsibility to look at it. And there's a particular document which I have drafted to make sure that everybody who runs, whether as a councillor or as a member of parliament, and indeed anybody who has any office in the party, they will have to sign it.
I'm just about out of time, but I can't let you go without asking your reaction to news that the DPP's tenure has been extended by 3 years.
It does not surprise me at all. What surprised me was the remark which the Prime Minister made about the whole issue, and in particular, his reference to a comment which is that he alleges that Dr. Phillips made. I had to call Dr. Phillips because it sounded so uncharacteristic and so absurd that a leader of opposition would say something like this when he's not assured of becoming a prime minister. He assured me that he had not written that to the prime minister. He confirmed to me that he wrote to the prime minister in February, that the prime minister has yet to respond to him, and that he wrote to the governor general in May. I found it very unfortunate that both the DPP's comments, which were supposed to be private in the sense sent only to the Commissioner of Police, according to her, to Deputy Commissioner Fitz-Bailey, and to the former
Speaking there
contractor
about the
general.
ruling again?
Yes, that it was made public. And I find it very offensive that correspondence and communication between the leader of opposition, the prime minister, and the governor general is also being made public. And I think that the prime minister's comment on it was unfortunate. Perhaps in these circumstances, they should all agree to make the communication public so one can see how it was really handled.
Was the extension problematic, though, you think?
I am sorry you did not ask me that earlier, because I have some challenges with it. For one, I am strongly in favor of term limits. For two, she has been there for a very long time. When she took office in 2008, women celebrated because now we had closed a circle. We had a female prime minister, a female chief justice, and now a female DPP. But I have had some challenges with how she has handled matters. And I have made it public that I've had some issues. I only wish that I had more time because I would be fully prepared to state my concerns, and I have concerns. In any event, I do think that it is good for an organization to refresh itself, to have different leadership, and being here from 2008 to 2020, I think she has served a very long time in the circumstances.
Okay, I'm going to have to leave it there, but we'll be happy to pick up with you on another forum tomorrow to talk a little bit more about those concerns you have. Thank you so much for talking to us. Always appreciate it. Leader of Opposition Business in the Senate, Donna Scott Motley. Stay tuned. Chuck Cameron when we come back.